And good afternoon, Allied Nation. My name is Rachel Kelmer, and you are tuning in to today's session of our AMN Allied Live Q&A sesh. Today, we are talking about all things SLPs in celebration of Better Speech and Hearing Month, which we are closing out for May. Before I introduce my two very special guests, I'm going to talk about some housekeeping items. For all of you that are viewing, please drop your questions and comments right in chat. Also visit us on the Instagram at AMN Allied and at AMN Healthcare. And of course, visit us on our amazing Passport app. You can check out all the latest jobs, and you can also go to our community page. And I do ask we have a special section that's called Share Your Voice. So for our seasoned travelers, you can upload a 45-second video of, just some tips and tricks for those new travelers getting out there, because we all love to hear the scoops on what to do when we are first starting out on a travel career. So now that I've got all that out of the way, without further ado, let's introduce our guest for today. So Stephanie, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Dixon. I am 28 years old. I was born and raised in Duluth, Georgia. I went to Tennessee State University where I got my degrees, and I have been a speech language pathologist for 5 years now and traveling with A&M for about 3.5.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. All right, Zach, what you got?
Well, I'm Zach Meyer, and I have been a recruiter with AMN going on almost 6 years now, and I specialize in the therapy disciplines, so physical therapy, occupational therapy, and of course speech language pathology. But I also place in all other disciplines as well, and so while I love all disciplines, of course, my heart always goes back to where I started in therapy, and I am in South Dakota.
Very cool. What's the weather like over there?
It is actually amazing. This is our 1 month window right now where it's amazing. So it's like winter, we have 1 month, and then it's unbearably hot and humid. So it's like prime. It's golfing, it's lake weather, we're in the prime right now.
Nice. I don't know. I'm in Florida, so it's always just hot and humid. Sure. Except we have 1 week of winter. But that's another story. All right, let's get talking about some speech stuff, shall we? So Stephanie, first question is for you. Tell us some more about your travel career, because 3.5 years, pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, I'll say it started even before I graduated from grad school. I had reached out because I was interested in travel therapy. So I set up some time to talk with Zach, and we decided at that time travel therapy just wasn't best for what I needed then. And I told Zach after I get my C's, I'd still be interested. So for about the next 1.5 years, we kept in contact. And once I was ready to go, Zach was there and assisted me, and he helped me find my first contract in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And then after that, I did the thing I said I never was going to do, and I went to schools, and I absolutely loved it there. From Myrtle Beach to Louisiana to Baltimore, I have had phenomenal contracts. There has not been a bad one. And I really think it's all because of the transparency that Zach and I have, and the great relationship with my recruiter. We've knocked it out of the park every time.
Okay, I'm just going to highlight one part because it's always the shining point of everything that we do together as a traveler and a recruiter. The relationship. It's so important in having that open communication. So thank you so much for really diving in on that point, because it's super duper important. All right, Zach, next one is for you. How did you help Stephanie find her first assignment? What was the first conversation like? Did she have somewhere specific that she wanted to go and you're like, or were you like, yeah, let's do it?
Somewhere in the middle. I think she came to me and she said she was ready, and I was like, yeah. 1.5 years of keeping in contact. Yes, this is what it's all about. Yeah. And so, collectively we created plans. We always like to create plan A, plan B, plan C. And I think what's great is I always like to plant seeds for the people who want to travel through me. And I think what's great and funny with Stephanie is I think she's always planting those with me too. So I think we're both kind of doing that. And then somehow we meet in the middle. So she came to me and she said, I want to go to Florida and I want to be in hospitals. And I said, okay, let's call that plan A. And knowing that, that's a tough one, especially someone a year and a half out of school. That can be a tough one, not impossible to get. We laid out some plan Bs and we came out with some really strong plan Bs. And that's how she ended up in the skilled nursing facilities there in South Carolina. And then along that way, we were creating additional plan A, plan B, and plan Cs because our plan A was still always Florida. And somewhere along the way, she planted that seed because she always likes to throw me curveballs too, which I'm always ready for. But she said, I want to be in schools, I think. And I was, shook because that was a thing that it wasn't even on a plan. It wasn't even plan X. It was, so we did it. We made it happen. And since then, we've been just constantly adjusting those A, B, and C plans. And I think, like she said, the transparency of just keeping our flexibility and keeping options open has led to her success.
Awesome. So the list that you mentioned before, Stephanie, I didn't hear Florida on it. Have you done an assignment in Florida?
That is where I was determined to go, and I have not stepped foot in Florida on a contract in 3.5 years.
Perfect. I'm tearing up over here, though. So see, you can say, it's all about, again, leaning on your recruiter, subject matter expert. They know the market. And Stephanie really wanted Florida, but hey, after 3.5 years, still not in Florida. And it just worked out that way. So I love hearing that story, even though it's comical, but it is true how you can have that plan A set up, just like you said, Zach. And it's good to have B, C, and D as well, just in case.
And not to interject, but truthfully, we had opportunities in Florida. We had some great interviews in Palm Springs and Jacksonville. And when it got weighed out, the plan B, I think, and Stephanie can speak to it more than me, I think the plan B actually ended up more appealing than the plan A. And I think that's where that transparency and flexibility and keeping an open mind to what's out there is incredible. So,
yeah, absolutely. So Stephanie, as an SLP, you've done everything under the sun in terms of settings. You've done medical, you've done schools, you're currently doing telehealth. So tell us about your different assignments, when it's comparing, medical to schools. What do you do to prepare for those?
So for medical settings, they're what I consider typically a little more fun because of the short amount of time you're there. So it's kind of fast paced, high motion to get in your contract, get comfortable because your contract ends relatively soon. I mean, you always have the option to extend if the company needs that at that time. But medical settings are fun. And the difference between that and schools, because schools, you're there from August to May. In schools, your students kind of grow on you. You get to see the progression and you grow with your students from August and see how they just matriculate and grow and develop, and you're with them at the end of the year. Versus a medical setting, you might eval someone on Monday and they be discharged by Friday. You don't really carry them with you as much. It doesn't follow you home or anything. So those are some of the differences. Telehealth kind of falls under the school umbrella, so it definitely has the same pros. Something that's different about telehealth, though, is you really are going to rely on your colleagues and your coworkers. They're kind of be the backbone of everything since you are remote. So your tele-aide, the in-person therapist are really going to be a major lifeline and critical to your success as a therapist. But I will say the fact that we have so many different settings that we can work in has helped prevent burnout majorly. because when I first started, I was medical set, but I had gotten worn out. My first contract was, I mean, it was fun, but it was really high paced and tough. So switching to schools honestly was very necessary for me at that time. And after you switch back and forth, you get an appreciation for both sides of it. And then when I am in my medical setting and it's springtime, I'm kind of like, man, schools have spring break right now. Maybe schools don't look so bad. So I mean, you're constantly looking at just what works best for you in that moment, and but it helps prevent burnout. And I've absolutely loved being able to switch it up and help people in different kind of ways.
So after 3.5 years of just kind of like sidebarring this, after 3.5 years of doing what you've been doing, have you found like what your niche is, like what you want to maybe one day when you're like, okay, it's time to settle down, Zach, let's go somewhere so I can, put my feet into and plant some roots. What setting do you think would be your ideal setting to fall on?
So, because I haven't done everything quite yet, I think what my heart is kind of leaning towards is maybe somewhere in the pediatric feeding. So that also would fall into the early intervention. But I love all things dysphagia. Swallowing is one of my favorite of the scope of practice. But I also love my kiddos. So I think that would be the best of both worlds. I won't know until I try it, but I think that is something that I'm interested in the future.
Zach,
I was listening.
Okay, so follow up, again, based off of your experience being a traveler for 3.5 years, top 3 interview questions you ask for every single interview. Pro tip.
So the first question I asked, and this was not something I asked early on in my travel career, and I think it would have helped me a lot, is what does the onboarding process look like? Because as a traveler, some contracts, they're going to want you to come in, hit the ground running. And I mean, day one, I want you to see 10 patients. There's other contracts where you have modules and you'll have a week in these more so in schools, but you'll have a week to get adjusted and you'll have someone who gives you a tour of the school. So depending on how solid someone feels as a traveler, knowing the onboarding process is going to reduce some first day jitters and maybe a little anxiety to know, okay, hey, they are expecting me to go in and treat on the first day. Or, hey, this is, okay, I have time to adjust. So the onboarding process, that's a question I ask every interview now. Another one was, what does the workload look like? So in a medical setting, how many patients a day is your current therapist seeing? Am I expected to do X amount of evals, X amount of treats? So you just get a good idea of what a day-to-day or your week would look like. For schools, it would be, what is the caseload? And even more important than just caseload, how many times a week are these students being seen? If I have a caseload of 50 and it's twice a week, that's a heavy workload versus, half of them are once a month, half of them are, once a week. So just what does your caseload, but more so your workload look like is another important question. And I would say the third question is, who is my point of contact during this contract? Because times you'll be interviewing with people that, I mean, I had for my interview in Baltimore, the person interviewing me was in Virginia and I never saw him. So if I had questions in the meantime about the facility or even just the area, is there a person who I can direct my questions to that will be able to help my transition flow a little more seamlessly?
I love that. And yeah, I mean, even after interview, say if you forget to ask a question that's really important to you, if you get that main point of contact, that helps tighten up that communication chain so you're able to get that question easily answered. But you can also, lean on your recruiter to, help get that question answered as well. But always good to have that point of contact. Phew. It's good stuff. Thanks. So Zach, tell us about what the SLP market is looking like right now, both for medical and schools.
Yeah, it's a great market. And just like you said, there's a lot of school and medical opportunities. At any given time, I was just reviewing it this morning in preparation for this, but I think there's, as many as 500 postings and 1,200 openings, meaning there's a lot of places that have multiple openings. And so, of course, right now being, May, and we're looking to fill a lot of 23, 24 school year positions. So there are a lot of amazing school positions open, including Hawaii, Alaska, California to Florida. I don't have to keep listing all states, but they're truly everywhere, and they're in. We always like to list coasts, but they're in Wisconsin, they're in Minnesota, they're in Kansas. So there's a lot of places like that as well that are available, and in medical settings, there's a ton of great opportunities as well, and truly all over of course, as well too. A bulk of our medical needs are going to fall in skilled nursing facilities, and we were talking a little bit in preparation of this. That's just where the need is, and kind of one of the things we talked about therapists, and one of the reasons I love therapists is that while travel has all these amazing perks of seeing the country and great money and all sorts of different opportunities, I think at heart most therapists are very altruistic. And so I think on the medical side, you can really make a difference, but really in skilled nursing facilities, because that's where a lot of the needs are. That just means that there's a lot of patients that are underserved. And as a clinician with that heart of gold, you can go in and that's where you can make the most immediate effect and help people the quickest in a 13-week period. Sometimes you feel like you can't make a difference in 13 weeks. And in facilities like that, you really can. And so keep that in mind when you're hearing what your recruiters are talking about for openings as well. But really, truly, it is a great market, and you are a needed discipline, and you can make a difference all across the country, whether in schools or in skilled nursing facilities or acute or home health. We've got a little bit of all of it for you.
All right, Zach, you hit the feels yet again. Because
you even knew it was coming.
I know. We do practice a little bit before this airs, but however, it's just such a huge the purpose behind what we do, why we do what we do, and that is to get the care to these patients that need it. And thankfully for folks like you, Stephanie, we're able to get you all out there traveling and get these patients care. I mean, that's just mind blowing. So Zach, you did it again. So thanks. I'm going to turn this way for a minute. I have to just dry it up a little bit. Anyway, before I get to the next topic, just a quick reminder, please drop questions and comments into the chat. We have a 3.5-year pro traveler with us. We have a subject matter expert, and Zach is one of our recruiters. So please drop those questions because we are very happy to answer them. So the next topic, I'm going to go over a little bit here, but it's in regards to the SLP Compact.
Yeah.
So really good stuff. If you don't know about the Compact, basically it makes licensing a lot easier for all those states that are already enacted into the legislation. So far, there are 27, and there's 9 on queue to enact the legislation for the SLP Compact, and they are expecting it to go live later this year, or it could be the beginning of 2024. But what's cool is you can visit the SLP Compact website for the latest and greatest updates on that. You can also go to asha.org and you can sign up for email updates. I did that the other day, and I love that they send email updates because, I mean, you never know. It could be tomorrow, and they're like, oh, by the way. I'm like, yeah. So it's very, very cool. All right. So SLP Compact, keep a lookout for it, please. Let's see. All right. So Steph, I'm going to ask you, do you mind if I call you Steph? Is that okay?
Not at all.
Okay. I was like, oh, nicknames already. But all right. So where has been your favorite assignment so far?
See, now that's a hard question.
And
Um,
why?
oh man. Um, and I truly have, I mean, I know it sounds very cliche, but I truly have loved all of my assignments for different reasons. So my favorite, it's between the contract, a school's contract I had in Louisiana and my last contract in Baltimore. And in Louisiana, it's up there because I just really was able to pour into the community. I definitely just really allowed myself to get immersed there. The coworkers I had were amazing. I ended up getting a part-time job in a hospital. That was a pro to that school system
Oh,
too.
cool.
There for a year, so I was able to get some experience in other settings. I was also closer to my grandparents. So I mean, I volunteered as a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate in the foster care system for children in the foster care. So, I mean, I just was really able to help others. And Zach knows that's, I guess, my biggest why behind traveling. So I loved Louisiana.
Yes.
So much fun. The
Oh
seafood was
man.
amazing. But then Baltimore, I mean, Baltimore was fun. I knew I was only going to be there for 13 weeks. So I had planned out. I mean, I went to a Ravens game. I went to an Orioles game. I I mean, I trained for a half marathon there. And I got COVID a week and a half before I had to run it. Yeah,
All right.
I was about to run a half marathon. But I mean, running on the harbor on the weekends, and I wish I had a little more time there. So yeah, I have two favorites. I guess that's my
Wow. So not only are you doing your work as a speech language pathologist, you're just throwing in a little philanthropy in there too, just whatever.
Yeah, I'm
I,
learning things left and right here. That was amazing. That
yeah,
was stellar.
I'm
I'm like,
learning,
you can see my eyes going, "Holy cow, what like
I'm learning I
amazing."
need to do more for my community so I don't feel like such a
Yeah.
face. Anyway, all right. So this next question is actually for you, Zach. It comes from Alyssa in the chat. Her question is, does a recruiter reach out to you once your profile is completed? So can you just do a brief overview of what happens once we receive a profile on our end?
Yeah, once you submit an application, whether through the app or on our website, it's going to go through a brief screening a period just to double check, like, oh yeah, they are who they say they are, this kind of thing. This is a little bit what they're looking for. And then you're going to get assigned to a recruiter, and they're going to reach out to you. And we are persistent, if nothing, people. So yes, you will hear from us. You will hear from us via text, via email, and via phone call in most situations. So be ready and answer the first one, so then we don't have to do the next three.
Yes.
But we're ready to talk and answer your questions. So
The first phone call is so important. Can you go over some of like the really good juicy topics, like your top three that you like to go over with on the initial phone screen?
yeah, I think the biggest one, the initial one that I do, when I do it, I always jokingly tell people I lay out what I know. And I say I get to the end of that is really quick. So then I want you to talk. I want you as the clinician to talk to me. So we find ways to do that. What are your questions? What are you looking for? And so that's the first one, is why are you reaching out? Why did you fill out an application? Because that's going to tell me a million things, and that's going to save you from doing my generic spiel. I'll give that spiel. I love giving that spiel. I have no issue with that. But if you kind of tell me what has you reaching out, that's going to narrow it down, and I'm able to cater the rest of that call to you. And so then the next things we're going to talk about is, well, what settings are you interested in? So we can narrow that down. Maybe you are a sniff only person, or maybe you are a schools only person, and that's fantastic. It's just going to steer that call even more. And then we can kind of get to the fun stuff. Where do you want to go? Do you love the planes? Do you love corn and soybean fields in your background every day? Because I grew up with it, I do. But because I think a lot of people like to say, do you like mountains or ocean? That eliminates like half the country, right? But I probably am going to ask you, do you like mountains or oceans? And so then that gives us an idea. And so then I always like to plant, some outside the box ideas. And as we go along too, I'm always planting an outside the box one kind of as like maybe like, oh, I know this is ridiculous, but if you think it's not ridiculous, we can talk more about it because I'll never plant an outside the box idea that can't happen. So anyway.
Yeah. So top three,
yep.
Location, setting, and why.
Yeah.
Why you want to do this.
Yep.
Very cool. Thank you for that. That was an impromptu. So
it was.
All right, Stephanie, where do you want to travel to for an assignment that you have not been able to go to yet? Zach, listen.
I think me and Zach know that Hawaii is still a place. We've had conversations that's come up. We have never pulled the trigger on Hawaii. So I think that's one place I definitely would love to do probably a longer contract and actually just spend some time there and just see what life is like in Hawaii. I think that's my favorite thing about traveling is being able to see how different people live. I mean, we're all in the same country, but just regionally, things are so different wherever I go. So I think the culture in Hawaii would be amazing. So that's probably where I'd like to go.
Yeah. Plus, if you like pig roasts, just saying. I mean, that's what I hear. I've never, been there, but whatever. And then I always love to ask the question, what got you into what you're doing now? So what got you into speech originally?
Well, getting into speech therapy was my mom. She works in early intervention, and she would always just be like, we don't have enough speech therapists, and just really guided me into the career. Did not really know what I was getting into. Everyone's like, speech therapist, you teach people how to talk. I mean, yes, but it's much more complex than that. And once again, I was guided into the best career ever. I love being a speech therapist. I love being able to help people in the manner that I do. It's funny how on so many different assignments, I will always hear, we really needed help. You were such a blessing. So it kind of just reinforces that I got in this to help people, and everywhere I go, they say they needed help, and I was able to deliver. So I guess that's why I got into it and why I continue to do what I do. And once again, I absolutely love it.
That's so great.
Can I just throw it in? Yeah. So it was thrilling to hear her favorite ones. It actually wasn't the ones I would have guessed. I was waiting to hear what she said when she said that a little while back. But I just wanted to take that opportunity as a shout out to our clinical management team because her favorite ones were not without obstacles. And so, that, excuse me, that Louisiana one it was a heavy caseload, and it was because they didn't have enough SLPs. And so, when we had those obstacles, we involved our clinical management team, and I'm always one of the first recruiters to shout out and say, we have an amazing clinical management team, and it truly is. They're the first one, and they're ready to jump in with legal, ethical issues, if it's heavy caseloads that are giving issues. The orientation didn't go well. They're going to jump in and help fix that right away. Be a liaison between facilities, me, and the clinicians. So I just wanted to take that opportunity, and that's why those were some of her favorite assignments, is because it was a truly team effort to make sure that happened. Because a lot of those could have went the other way without the help of all the people at AMN. So that's another one of my sappy things to throw out there.
Emotions are heightened. No, that's a huge, huge call out. Our clinical team They, they have to deal with some stuff, guys, just to put it lightly. And they do such an amazing job um, across all different types of issues that do arise. And like Zach said, they are a really great liaison and a great team to lean on for those problems that come up, which it happens. But we are actually at the end of the time. I don't see any other questions in chat. So, Zach and Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you for any last minute thoughts you wanted to throw in before we close it out.
Oh, well, I would just say that once again, I truly mean it when I say I have the best career ever. The field of speech language pathology is amazing. We need more therapists, but also being a travel therapist has, opened up just my lifestyle is completely different and very freeing lifestyle. So I would encourage anyone that is thinking, has an inkling, wants to go into therapy, wants to go into travel therapy, do it. It is very, very rewarding.
Love it. Do it. Anything from you, Zach?
Just, I love what I do. I love living vicariously through the clinicians. So, I feed that, all that's the need to see the country. I fulfill that both by doing it, but also by hearing the stories of all my clinicians every week. And so, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I really love what I do and being able to facilitate the amazing people that I get to work with every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I was always so jealous. My one physical therapy traveler would send me these amazing pictures from Alaska while she's camping in the middle of nowhere, just looking at the aurora borealis. I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. And then under my breath, I'm like, I want that. So yes, live vicariously through our travelers is pretty cool. So when in doubt, always share your experiences with your recruiters. Send pictures because we want to see it as much as you all are seeing out there. We want to see it too. All right, so we're going to close this bad boy out for today. Thank you all so much for joining. To our healthcare professionals, thank you so much for all you do every day. Stephanie, big thank you to you as our speech language pathologist guest star. Zach, thank you so much for joining us, our subject matter expert. And we hope to see you on the next Allied AMN Live series Q&A session. But for now, have a great afternoon. Bye, guys.